Welcome, everybody. Here we are, another episode of GLP's 10 out of 10. Today with New York City-based lighting designer, Fred Bock. Welcome, Fred.
Hi, how are you?
Fantastic.
Great.
Fred is the lighting director for NBCUniversal, lighting director designer for The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Fred has worked with Late Night on Conan O'Brien, the variety show Maya and Marty, Saturday Night Live many times, lighting designer for Christmas in Rockefeller Center, and Fred has received 4 Primetime Emmy nominations. So pretty excited to have you with us today, Fred, for the 10 out of 10 questions.
I'm excited as well. It gives me something to do.
There you go. That and ride your bike, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's just get right to it. So what was your
Sure.
first show as a designer?
That would be, I did a production of Frankie and Johnny and the Claire de Lune at the Performance Network in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That was my first design experience.
You want to date yourself?
Let's see if I can remember exactly. That was probably 1989, 1990, something like that.
Very cool. All right, so moving from there, what was your most Spinal Tap or embarrassing moment on a show that you're willing to tell us about?
I had to think about that because there's many. But the one that probably embarrassed me the most was doing a show. I accidentally hit the blackout button on the console. And of course it was a live television show. So that was just a few seconds of awkwardness, but luckily I recovered quickly. But it was still pretty humbling, pretty embarrassing.
Yeah. That stuff stays with you for a while.
Oh, it sure does. It sure does. Well, you try to forget about it, and I did. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, yeah, what kind of, well, there was, I know. And that one just came right back. And I was like, oh. That was probably the most humbling experience I've ever had.
There you go.
Of many,
right? As we all, anybody in this has had.
Exactly.
All right. So during your career, which is extensive and awesome, what's the best advice anybody has given you, either professionally or otherwise?
Well, the best advice I've ever gotten, and this was a really easy one because I carry it with me to this day. Back in college, Professor Lucy Leggett, she was in the radio, TV, film department, and because I double majored in theater and TV, radio, film, and we were working on a documentary together. And I was trying to get this one edit exactly right and precise, and we were working on it it must have felt like, for me, it felt like 10 minutes. And I was a dog with a bone. For her, it probably felt like 10 hours. And I kept trying, nope. And finally, after however much time it was, she just stopped me and said, sometimes you just have to let things go. And I thought about that and I went, you know what? You're absolutely right. It's time to move on. And so to me, that's probably been the best advice I've ever been given, is that you've got to sometimes realize when you may not get perfection, but things are pretty darn good and you just have to move on because maybe it's not going to be any better than what it is.
Right.
And so it's time to put down the sharpening tools. It's time to just stop everything and just say it's done and walk away. Because you can be messing with something all the time.
Sure.
Especially
you can overanalyze it.
And especially in lighting, I mean, you can always just look and have take every second of, that you have to constantly work on things and fine tune it and massage it. And I find for me now, the most effective thing to do is if there's something I really hate, and it could just be a personal thing for me. But since television's a collaborative effort and there's so many other people involved, I'll turn to the director and say, I'm seeing blah, blah, blah. Are you seeing it? And does it matter? And do I have time to fix it? And just take whatever, at that point, whatever direction I'm giving, whether it's like, yeah, no, you're right. Or no, we're fine. Let's just go on. Because again, the other thing with TV is your biggest enemy is time, especially for a daily talk show, because you're always just running up against the clock with everything. And every department is got that same time pressure. So you just kind of want to keep the line moving as best you can.
Cool. That is a unique world to work in
Yeah,
for sure. All right, so on staying on that whole professional theme,
sure.
so professionally, what's your proudest achievement?
Um, hmm, I don't like to dwell on things, but one of the things recently, and I wish I could remember the title of the song we were doing for the Tonight Show.
Hmm.
It was with Jim James, and uh, it was just him, and he had a small chorus, and it was him with an acoustic guitar. And so we were trying to figure out an interesting way to stage it. And so I went up to the director and I said, I have a really interesting idea. Because usually, for something like that, typically we put the chorus behind Jim
Hmm.
up on risers or something like that, and then just sort of have him placed in the middle. I said, what if we put him on a tall riser 4 or 5 feet in the air, and have everyone else, the chorus, because it was like the chorus, I think 6 members, and they would just sort of appear for the chorus and then they would just go
Hmm.
away. And when we put them just sort of all around on the floor, and he just kind of looked at me and he said, well, that's exactly the opposite of what I want to do. And I said, no, I know, me too. I said, but I think because if you kind of shoot up, we can kind of really hide them in a way that we wouldn't ever be able to do if we did the traditional, and we could hopefully have something kind of cool out of it. And it really came out nicely. And one of the reasons I think that's one of my prouder moments is because it was coming up with an idea, selling the idea, and especially in the daily grind, and just coming up with something sort of special and magical. That to me was probably one of my prouder moments.
That's awesome, especially when it all works out.
Exactly. It's such a small little thing, but I'd rather be prouder of the smaller things than the bigger
Yeah,
things.
that's cool.
Especially,
That's a great story, man. That's awesome.
yeah, thanks.
Um, so in life in general, but especially
Uh
now
huh.
when we have more of it, what do you
Yeah.
do in your downtime?
Well, let's see. I've got 2 rat terriers that are about
Hmm.
3 years old each, Skip and Trixie. So take them for walks, try to keep them out of trouble. Um, Spent a lot of time with my wife, talking with her, and it's been kind of nice because I've been able to cook, because we've always sort of had this agreement where whoever is home first would be the
Hmm.
one that cooks dinner. It was an easy one for me to make because I'm always home later than her. She works on Good Morning America, so she's home by like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and I'm usually
Uh-huh.
home by 8 or 7 or 8. So it was a
Right.
very easy deal to make. However, I've been paying that back in as much as possible in this time, and I cook
Hmm.
pretty much almost every night. So there's that, and then lately, now that the weather's nicer, doing a lot of cycling.
Cool.
So I did about 20 miles this morning, and it's been nice to kind of just get out. It's really the thing I like about cycling is it's such a meditative thing to do on some level
Hmm.
when you get into a good rhythm. And I live in Hoboken, so I'm not that far from Liberty State Park,
Right.
and there's a good couple loops I can do around there. So I'll do that and then just sit back home.
Cool. That's awesome. Um, as so this may be a little bit of a different question for
Sure.
you, being
Okay.
television based
Uh-huh.
mostly anyway, but
Right.
what's the best venue you've ever worked in?
That was a really easy one. That's an
Hmm.
easy one. It's Radio City.
Cool.
Radio City is probably one of my favorite venues. It was because I did the upfront for NBC there twice.
Hmm.
Around, I don't know, maybe around 2014 or something like that. 2012, yeah, something with that. I don't even remember. But um, I just remember walking out on that stage the first time
Hmm.
and just sort of looking out and just seeing how big it is. And it was another one of those just sort of humbling moments where it's like, oh wow, I'm really gonna do this thing
Right.
here. I hope I don't screw it up. And they've got great crews. I mean, it's such a pleasure to work there.
Hmm.
It really is. And it's a lot of fun because there's so much history there, with the stage itself, that it's my favorite venue.
Awesome. I remember going in there in the early '80s to make
Uh-huh.
a delivery, and my jaw was on the ground. Just
Right?
the scope of it, the scale,
Yeah.
the size of the freight elevator was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
bigger than any freight elevator I'd ever seen in my life at that point. It was
I
pretty
know.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's that's one of my favorite questions out of all these, because
Uh-huh.
a lot of people have different answers, but they're all connected to the bones of the place. You know, they're all
Sure.
connected to the history of the venue. So I think that's pretty cool. During the whole, you know, quarantine time, so to say,
Yeah.
since we have, you know, a lot of spare time, what's the one album or artist that you couldn't do without during this time?
I would say that would have to be Elvis Costello. Yeah, I
Cool
love
choice.
all of his work,
Hmm.
and he really runs the gamut with it. You know, he's not afraid to push the envelope musically and do new things,
Right.
do things you wouldn't expect from him. Uh, Solid songwriting, it's all great stuff. So Elvis Costello probably is the one artist I could do without. I couldn't do without.
Yeah.
And
Very cool.
having said that though, if you haven't heard X's new album,
Uh-huh.
which they haven't, it's phenomenal.
All
So that's
right.
been
I'll
a
have to
fun one
check
as
that out.
well. Yeah.
That's cool. So if you could go back in time and
Mhm.
what's the bit of advice you'd give a teenage Fred Bock?
Mm. I, I would probably tell him not to be so serious and take things a little more in stride, and certainly smile a lot more than I probably even thought would have been necessary.
Right.
You know, because I could have been very serious as a teenager, as a young teenager, and I was very
Hmm.
driven once I kind of got the theater bug and the TV bug. So I was on a trajectory, hopefully for myself at that point, and I just took everything so deadly serious. And I wish, you know, looking back, that I didn't take it as seriously and would have enjoyed it more. Would have found a way to find the fun in it more than just the work in it.
Hmm. Cool. That's good. That's good advice. Um, if you could sit down and have a cup of coffee with one person, you know, living or past, who would
Hmm.
it be?
These are interesting times. There's a lot of people I'd like to do that with, but I think the one person I'd love to have a cup of coffee with would be my grandfather,
Oh, that's awesome.
who I haven't, you know, he passed away, gosh, probably about 26 years ago now. So when I moved back, because he lived in New Jersey, and you know I grew up in Michigan for the most part. So when I decided to start my career out here, you know, I stayed with him, spent a couple of months with him, and then he had gotten really sick at that point. But yeah, I'd really like to have a cup of coffee with him, just shoot the breeze like we used to do, and just thank him for everything that he did for me throughout my whole life. He was probably at that point in time in my whole life, he was probably one of my very best friends and probably the
Cool.
best friend.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I'd love to see him one more time.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to have a family connection like that.
Yeah.
That's good thinking, man. Good. Um, I am waiting for somebody to answer this question though with the dude that invented coffee. That would be that would be a good one. Um, so, all right. So for the final question,
Okay.
so here we go. We're coming to the Olympics, and your country's calling you, Fred. What sport are you competing in? Summer or winter? Doesn't matter.
I got a summer one and a winter one. Uh, Summer,
Hmm.
rhythmic gymnastics, because I think I could fake my way through that. I think just give me the stick with the ribbon on it, and I'll just sort of follow along as best I can. And I probably wouldn't hurt myself, and hopefully no one else. And winter, it would probably be the luge, because I'll just get in that sled and hold on and just hope everything works out. And that's really all you need to do at that point. So it's on my own at that point. Let physics take over.
Just don't open your eyes. You're all good,
Exactly.
man.
You're just like this the whole time. It'll be over soon enough.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I do have to say, as the TV lighting designer,
Yeah.
you look better on Zoom than anybody I've spoken to so far.
Well, that's all through the magic of using a light.
There
Um,
you go.
I have to say, everyone that's doing Zoom stuff could really do themselves a favor by using LoomCube.
Hmm.
They've got some great stuff out there.
Cool.
So,
That's a little square dude, right?
well, they've got little square ones. They've got panels.
Uh-huh.
They've got a bigger panel and a smaller panel. and they're color temperature adjustable and everything else. I mean, they're great.
Awesome. All right, man. Well,
So,
again, thank you very much. We
yeah,
greatly
absolutely. Thank
appreciate you
you.
spending some time with us. It was a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
it was.
All
Thanks,
right.
Brian.
Be well, Fred. Take
You
care.
too. Take care. Bye.